Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
The Bears.
Because of the way they play the nickel corner here, and the nickel corner plays 88-85% of the snaps. He's got to be like part linebacker.
The Bears.
When you're in a scouting room, there's going to be differences of opinion.
The Bears.
Once coaches get involved, of course, they've got their own opinions about what fits best for what they want to do, and that could be drastically different than what the scouts say.
Well, you're looking at traits, and remember, he tested very, very well.
The Bears.
One thing good about Kevin, he's been with 2 other organizations, as well as being the commissioner of the Big Ten. He's been around.
The Bears.
With Greg Olson, Jerry didn't want to get rid of him. I didn't want to get rid of him. Nobody wanted to get rid of him. One guy wanted to get rid of him, Mike Martz, because Mike Martz didn't know what the hell to do with him. We tried to talk Lovey out of hiring Mike Martz for a month and a half. He's playing zone, but number one, he doesn't get enough depth with the drop. But who the hell's Gilbert? How many times does a 305, 310-pound defensive tackle drop into coverage, especially in a key situation?
The Bears.
Greg, why are teams wrong on quarterback evaluation so often?
Number one, it's a hard position to evaluate. There's probably not as many real good quarterback evaluators as there needs to be.
The Bears. The Bears. The Bears.
Ooh, why is he up on the screen? Because
I don't
he
know.
has
He
not.
looks pissed off too, doesn't he?
He sure does. What the heck is going on? I want to get rid of that picture. My name is Aldo Gandia. This is the picture that should be up beside me. Welcome to GTF. Gabriel Talks Football. My name is Aldo Gandia, and with me, of course, is the man of the hour, Greg Gabriel. And we are going to be here for about an hour before I bring in a bunch of other podcasters at 11 a.m. for round-by-round coverage of Day 3. Greg, how are you this morning?
But I told you, I stayed up and watched tape till 1 o'clock this morning to make sure I'm right on people, or at least right with my opinion. So I'm a little tired, but that's okay.
That's okay. That's okay. We are accustomed to it, aren't you? When you were working as the director of scouting for the Bears, did you put in 24 hours around that draft weekend? Or draft week?
Leading up to long hours. Well, back then we were Saturday and Sunday. The draft days, no. You know, I had somebody asked me that yesterday, and I said I had a routine. The draft was Saturday and Sunday, and it started at noon back then, so noon Eastern, so 11 o'clock here. And, I'd get into the office 7:38, get my workout in. But now here's the thing. I had to do 60 minutes of cardio. I'm superstitious. That doesn't mean 60 minutes and 30 seconds. It means 60 minutes on the dot and stop. So,
oh my goodness.
It started, I was with the Giants. I used to go for a run. And sometimes I wouldn't pay attention. I'd go for a run for an hour because I could run for an hour back then before my knees died. And I might be a mile away from the hotel or from the facility when 60 minutes hit, and I had to walk back. But it's what it is. I always tried to get a lift in, take a shower, go upstairs. We'd meet, but all our planning was done. So I say, so we'd meet a little bit, just reiterate the plan, and then go into it. Now, get to today. Now, it was, even back then, the day started. The last day started with the fourth round, and the fourth round, top of the fourth round, is prime trade up territory. People, they look at their board, and when they get done the night before, and when they come in the morning and they see a player or two that they like, and then it's like, oh, I got to have that guy, and he's going fast, so I got to get up and get him. So you will see every year a bunch of trades at the top of the fourth. Now, will it get to the Bears at 7? That remains to be seen. But there's a possibility at the same time the Bears could be looking at the players and say, no, we're not passing them. We're taking them.
Outstanding. You know, I first of all, I gotta point out that Jason is watching us live from Australia.
Damn.
Born and raised in Chicago. He's live. Berlissimo is watching us from England. And Chubbs has volunteered $2 this Saturday morning. That's fantastic. Thank you all. And so I want to get into it, Greg. What transpired yesterday is that the Bears drafted Luther Burden III at wide receiver, Ozzie Trapillo at offensive tackle, and Shamar Turner at defensive line. On Wednesday, if you would have told me that the Bears were going to draft a cattle rancher, a really sullen type wide receiver, an offensive tackle that not many figured for the Bears, and a junkyard dog in Shamir Turner, I would have said, really? That's what's going to happen? I'm not sure you're right.
You know, it's how it falls. We've said it a bunch of times the last few days. How is their board lined up? Mm-hmm. How we see players and they see players, and actually team to team, how they see it's all different. No two boards are ever the same.
Right.
So you're going according to that. Now, I don't think the Bears will ever admit it because it's really, to say that would be kind of a slap to Luther Burden. I don't think there's the way that it took a long time to make that pick. From the time the previous pick, they went almost the entire 7 minutes, which tells me, you know, Henderson goes off the pick before. The two running backs go bam, bam, the two picks before them, 37 and 38. So it's like, okay, shit, we just lost our player, whichever it was. And then they had like, okay, what are we going to do? And it took a few minutes to assess it. And then they took Burden. Burden's a darn good player now. Okay, so, and then you look at the depth of the running back position. Well, it wouldn't shock me if they took a run. There's some good running backs. We'll talk about that a little later. Mm-hmm. But this guy, Burden, a lot of people thought, you know, early in the process, and that's like going even up and through the combine, he was going to be a first. I don't know exactly what happened, but a lot of the analysts dropped him to the high part of the second, which is where he went. And there's one thing that's clear. He can frickin' run. You know, fast receiver, time 4.40 or 4.41, he plays faster than that. You know, like the guy Green Bay took, Golden, he runs like a 4.30, 4.33, something like that. But he doesn't play. He plays 4.45. Golden plays slower than Burden. Burden really plays fast. He can play inside or outside. He's about the same size as DJ coming out, maybe a half inch taller, but you know, on the north side of 200 pounds, he's 205 pounds. He can jump, he can run. He's real good after the catch. So it's just, you know, it's another guy to stretch the field, and his play speed probably, you know, Detroit had the skinny wide receiver that supposedly is on the trade market now, Williams. That was their stretch the field guy. This guy can be the stretch the field guy for Ben Johnson.
One of the things that was concerning about Luther Burden was the issues that he had in college, where it appeared at times that he would take plays off. Have you heard any of that?
No, not hear it. And long as all the years I've been doing this, watching receivers. Now, receivers got a little diva in them. Mm-hmm. I think it's part of the position. Like, you
got to have that mentality. It looks like.
Yeah. Now, what's funny is like DJ doesn't have it. Mm-hmm. Rome doesn't have it, but there are. I mean, look at Pickens. Every receiver, if the Steelers take really good receivers, they get rid of them right after when their contract's done,
right.
because they take divas.
Yeah.
Some receivers, just when they're not one or two, and let's say and I don't know that much about the Missouri offense, but let's just hypothesize and say it's a half field read. And so the play's designed to go to the right and he's on the left.
Right.
Okay. So a lot of times those guys, they're not getting the ball and they're not going out. Now you got to coach that out of them. And Antoine Randall will do that. Now you saw the little clip before they announced the pick. I think you might have seen it, where they shoot to the Bears draft room, and Randall L's hugging Ben and hugging Ryan because he likes this guy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So one thing I've learned, and I've said this before, you can't take a player a coach doesn't like,
mm-hmm.
because it just won't work. But when a player really likes a player and he's driven to coach him,
mm-hmm.
that always works.
Indeed. This was Ryan Poles answering questions from the media about Luther Burden, because when Burden met with the Chicago media, he didn't sound too excited. His tone sounded like he was disappointed. This is Ryan Poles.
Anytime you're in a situation where you feel like, you got passed by certain teams for certain reasons, I do think that chip grows on your shoulder, and it ignites a different type of work ethic, a different type of mentality. The key thing is capturing that and making sure that it carries on. It's not just, a flash in the pan type thing. Can we consistently put that time, that effort, that work in to be at a really high level? The beautiful thing about our situation, you come in, you got to compete. Like, there's guys in this room that have played, either, Rome coming off of his year last year, to DJ who's played for a long time, to Duvernay, to all of them. Like, you got to bring it if you want time on the field. And I think if I can't emphasize anything else, I'll go back to Ben's deal about being comfortable, being uncomfortable. Like, there's some guys that are going to have to grind a little bit harder than probably they ever have before. So I think it's going to push everyone to be really good.
Greg, there seems to be a new approach with Ben Johnson in the house, that they're not going to be afraid of taking players who perhaps don't have sterling characters. I mean, Shamar Turner is an example of that. Heavily penalized when he was at college, had a reckless driving incident and so forth. This team wants junkyard dogs at every position, and
At that position.
But Luther Burden, maybe he doesn't have an arrest record or something, but he looks like a junkyard dog to me. He's ready to go out there and scrape.
Well, he thought he was going in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a little sullen, he's a little pissed.
Sure.
And hi, it's Ryan Poles from the Bears. You ready to be a Bear? Yeah.
It wasn't until Randall L got on the phone that he sounded excited.
Now, I have not. I listened to Pillow. I have not listened to the Burden Zoom, and I have not listened to Shamar Turner. I'll do that when we get done.
Mm-hmm.
The Turner I love, but we'll get to that in a minute. But Burden's another weapon, and you can't have too many weapons. Now, somebody said, well, Tyler Scott's gone. Probably. And maybe one of those two free agents they signed him at, basically veteran minimum. Maybe one of those two guys is gone too. So, and there's nothing wrong with competition. Now, how you get a good team? Have a lot of competition in camp.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and indeed, that is going to happen. There's going to be plenty of competition, and Poles welcomes that, and I think Ben Johnson thrives on that too. Like Poles said in that soundbite, get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's going to be a great selling T-shirt that I'm going to start publishing now, because really successful.
Why don't you
people,
do that?
I should.
And then put a trademark on it.
There you go. I should put a trademark on it right away.
Man, you'll be all set, bro.
I will. All right. So now let's talk about Ozzie. You weren't real high on him during the draft process because you thought he was not a fit. Tell me what you did last night after
really
the draft.
Here's the thing. And I did Ozzie, I worked for some agents.
Mm-hmm.
So I start, like, I've already done close to 100 players for next year, because once the college season's over, that's said by January 1st. January 1st, I'm like, working on next year's guys, and I get a list. I got a list of 14 players yesterday because I got done with the last list,
Mm-hmm.
and I try to do 2 or 3 a day, which takes some time. But anyway, went back to look up my report. I wrote it in August. So I was all 23. And, I didn't dislike him. I didn't like him as a second rounder. Maybe at best a third, or late 3 into 4. But I hadn't seen 24 tape. This was so, I went off of what I saw. So when I watched the 24 tape from 10:30 last night to 1 o'clock this morning.
Wow.
and because I've got every game in college football, Power 5, G5, or Power 4, G5, and FCS, going back the last 3 years, because of the work I do with the East-West. It's, we got a subscription to this that we get through the league. And so I did it. And now in the college all 22, you can, what's on the computer, if I could bring, I wish I could bring it up, but I can't. If I just want to see run blocks, I can just click on all run blocks, and then you look at the end zone view, because that's when you're doing lineman, offensive and defensive lineman, you don't want the wide angle, you want the end zone. And so you watch the end zone view of offensive linemen play after play after play. If you want to do it through just like watch all his run blocks, you can do it that way. Then all his pass blocks, you can do it that way. Sometimes that's the best way to do it because you get sometimes a better feel.
Right.
But at right tackle, now this guy he hadn't played left. People go, oh, he's left tackle. And I've said like 1,000 times on that. No, he's not. He's right tackle. He hasn't played left since the 22 season.
Right.
23 and 24, they moved him over. Why did they move him over? Well, they brought in another guy that could be the left side, but he just, in my opinion, doesn't have the traits, that quick twitch that a left tackle needs. You know how athletic Braxton is and some of the real good left tackles in the league. And I'm not saying Braxton's one of the best left tackles in the league, but he's got the traits. He's extremely athletic. Okay, this guy, a comp for this guy. Last night, I don't know if you watch ESPN or NFL Network. I watch NFL Network because I like DJ's analysis.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And DJ said right away, Rob Havenstein, who's been now his 11th or 12th year as the right tackle. He came in, started as a rookie, second round pick out of Iowa. The ironic thing is, I think Trapillo was the 56th pick and Havenstein was 57. They're both 6'8" guys. They're both about the same height or same weight. Trapillo, in my opinion, is way better athlete than Havenstein. Havenstein is not a good bender. He's more of a mauler type, knows how to get good position, knows how to overcome his weaknesses. And he's been a very good tackle in the league. This guy has got natural bend. They play some outside zone in BC, so you see him pulling and getting out into space and having to break down and hit a defensive back or a linebacker who's on the move. He does it well. He is a nasty run blocker. He's got some natural hip thrust, when he makes contacts, one of the things I look for is you watch their hips and you see if their hips like roll into the opponent, into the defender, and it's you either have it or you don't. It's a natural thing. He's got that. That brings extra power. He runs his feet on contact, and what that means is that there's some guys, they make contact, they stop their feet, and then they restart. Okay, you can lose your leverage that way. What he does is he makes contact and he keeps driving with his feet. So he's a real good right tackle prospect. I do not feel that that he can play left tackle in the National Football League. Now, can he get you out of a game? Yeah. But getting you out of a game and being a starter and playing week after week are two different things. Somebody hit me up on because I said, no, he's a right tackle. Well, you should have listened to the Zoom call. Well, I did. And what he said was, if they would have asked me in January or at the end of the season what I am, I'd say right tackle. But since then in my training, I've worked at all the positions. Fine. That's good on his part. That does not mean, and I'm not taking anything away from him, that does not mean he can do it at the NFL level. It means he's worked on it.
Right.
So, you got to read between the lines. I do think he can play guard. You don't see a lot of 6'8" guards, but I do believe he can play because he has enough bend and enough athleticism to, go out and do that. And he gets out in space. You've seen him pull from the tackle position, so he can do it from the guard position. And so now, second round, you want him to be a starter. Well, absolutely you do. But, and I'll use this example because I think it's a great example. A couple of years ago, Philly takes Jurgens from Nebraska.
Cam Jurgens.
Second round, just like this guy. Did he start first 2 years? Nope. Why? Because they had an all-pro at center.
Pretty good guy, yeah.
Okay. But they brought him in, learned the culture, learned the position, was able to back up at guard. Kelsey retires, plug him in, play, and they don't lose a beat. That's what good football teams do.
Yeah.
And to Pohl's credit, he mentioned it. He's mentioned it a couple times. He said, you saw the problem we had last year. We didn't have the depth that he thought he had. And they had, the different group of guys playing along the offensive line every week. And, it was a disaster. So it's good to have those guys, and it's good to have a quality player. Now, other people say, well, does this mean Wright's going to left tackle? And my answer was, I don't know, because that's a coaching decision. That's something between Roshar and Johnson, and Ryan's really not going to be involved in that. That's, where they play and where they line up. That's up to the coaches. Right. And now, can you try him there? They may have tried him there at this 3-day mini camp. We don't know the answer to that. Right. If you notice, they didn't even have a presser after the mini camp was done talking about it. I thought that was kind of odd, but they didn't. They just kept it quiet. It was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. See you guys next week. And never had a talk with the media about what went on. And the media was not allowed to watch that either. It was closed. So, but anyway, during this off season, you still got time to work out. You got another few weeks of, working 4 days a week. Last week was the first week. Now up until OTA start, you can do work on the field every day with your players. But it's there's no helmets or anything like that. And you can't have offense versus defense. It's strictly, working within, it's like a long position period. You're just working with your position group, and you can work team. You just can't work against the defensive side.
Mhm.
So, but they can do that for the next few weeks until OTAs start. Really, it's almost a month until OTAs start. The rookies will be coming in, the rookie mini camps in 2 weeks, and then they'll be staying, and then taking part in this too. So then it's a matter of putting it all together. Ryan said the one thing last night, they asked him about putting Darnell over on the left side. And he goes, well, we got to see how everything plays out, and it's got to, we want to play the best five. He kind of evaded the question. So it's just, let's get good football players. Somebody said, why'd they take a position that they don't need? And I answered the question. I said, because the purpose of the draft is to draft the best players.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy's a good football player.
All right. I want to thank Chubbs for his $10 donation.
Yeah,
and he
you.
says something that I was actually wondering too. I haven't heard this yet, but maybe we should consider that Ben Johnson doesn't like Darnell Wright. And honestly, Darnell went the opposite way of the entire offensive line repeatedly last year. I'm not sure I agree with that last point, but Darnell Wright is under contract through the 2026 season. So they may have drafted Ozzy's replacement if they are not happy with Darnell's progression. They need to see Darnell really start to elevate his play in 2025 before they start considering picking up that fifth-year option for 2027.
Okay,
and Trapillo gives them a safety blanket.
That's a fair statement. Let's be honest. The offensive line was a freaking mess last year.
That's about as honest as you can get.
So different combinations every week. It's like he never had the same. He had the one guy next to him for a good part of the year, but that guy, I'm it'd be 74 years old in a week and a half, and I might be able to move as good as him. That guy was a 5'8" guy coming out of college, and he's probably a 6'3" guy now. He just, tough guy, but no movement skills, and really not a fit for doing outside zone. But and that has an effect on how Darnell played. How you go back to what Rochard said. The guards help, the inside helps the outside. And Darnell didn't have help on the inside. And he said, his last 2 years, he's had different people he's been playing against. I think he's a quality talent. I'm not worried about him. I can't say that he can play left tackle because he hasn't played left tackle in 4 years. And when he played left tackle at Tennessee, he was average. That's why they moved him back to the right side. He was elite on the right side. So, let's just let it play out. Don't worry about who's starting, who's not starting. You want a strong football team with a lot of depth so that if player A goes down, his backup can come in and you're not losing a lot. You're not like, oh shit, what are we going to do? And so that's the way I look at it.
Yeah. And Chubbs wants to add with another $5 donation. Chubbs, thank you again very much. He's saying that the communication with the line was bad and the entire line would pass block to the left and Darnell would go to the right. And there were, I think Greg just nailed it when he said the entire offensive line was bad. It was probably the players not listening to their coaching staff anymore. There was team dysfunction and so forth. So it's really hard.
Here's one of the things, although that fans don't seem to get, and it goes into this.
Mm-hmm.
So when last year's OC comes in, he agreed with SEMO to keep the same blocking scheme in place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they go all through OTAs in the offseason doing that. And then the jerk decides to change it going into camp. And so it's like, who's on first? You've been playing it one way for 2 years, and then all of a sudden you change it. And, some guys, it's not easy to do. And I'm not making a mistake. I'm just saying, take last year and throw it out, dig a hole, put it in there. Don't worry about it. It's a new ball game this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't always look at what they did and what they didn't do. I look at the talent.
Yeah.
Can he do it? And I know he can do it. And I know they got a guy that knows how to teach it. So we'll see. And that's all you can say. I'm not. I think Darnell can be a very good tackle. I can't tell you he can play left. I watched tape of him 4 years ago play left tackle, and he was all right, but he wasn't. It's like Trapillo when he played left tackle in 2022. He was all right, but he goes to the other side and it becomes real good.
Yeah. Well,
I'll tell you, guy, I started to say it, and I said, DJ was using Havenstein. I got a little better comp, at least in my opinion. Same size, same type of frame. McGlinchey.
Mm-hmm.
And McGlinchey, he was a left tackle at Notre Dame, but as soon as San Francisco drafted him, they put him on the right side.
All right.
And played really well for San Francisco on the right side. And, ended up getting a bunch of money in free agency. Now he's with Denver. But to me, he's a little close because he's got more bend than Havenstein. So he's a little athletically, he's more similar to McGlinchey, in my opinion, than Havenstein. Havenstein, to me, is just an average athlete. He knows how to overcome his weaknesses and real smart and real strong.
All right, let's turn our attention to Shamar Turner. This guy, an inspiration last night when he handled calls from the media. Brandon Lawson, friend of the show, texted me and said, this guy has got me jacked up. So I took a look at the interview and I had to put
I haven't seen it, so this will be interesting.
Yeah, and I put some music to it, so this will be fun.
Man, playing with an edge, being an edgy guy, playing with fire like that is always good. But, you got to know how to control it, and you can't let it control you. So I feel like keeping it at a certain level, like right on the line. I can stay right on the line, but just don't cross it. And, man, I have a great career, bro. Great career. To me, you can't be a football player, especially a D lineman, putting your nose in there, putting your hand in the dirt, if you ain't got a little something to you, bro. So you always got to play with a little fire, with a little edge, bro. I feel like that's what makes football exciting too, Get to bounce around and, get your guys hyped up. Just kill, bro. Literally just go, bro. That's all I'm thinking about, bro. Since I touch the field, all I do is go, man. And I've been having that mentality since a kid, bro. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, bro. I honestly don't know, bro. It's just a fire inside me, bro. I don't know. Kill, though. Take their lunch money. Bro, this is crazy. I'm sorry, y'all.
No, it's there for you.
They really can't block me.
That is a fired up dog. I couldn't help but think about you, Greg, because you have said since we've been doing this show, these guys, these defensive linemen, this is what you want. You guys,
what did I say the definition of a defensive lineman is?
It's a thug. And he said, I would steal their lunch money. I'll do whatever. I'll kill him.
I don't know if you saw the post I put on right after they drafted him.
No.
I said, I'm going to try to say this nicely about Shamar Turner. Then I thought, he's a nasty motherfucker.
And that is what I love. One of my wishes going into this draft was let's get more nasty as a football team. And this guy could be the centerpiece of nastiness.
But here's the thing. He's like 294, I think he was at the combine or something like that. So, and you go back to Ben's opening presser, and he said after Billings came out, they lost something inside. And so I'm thinking, okay, they need a bigger anchor. But this guy plays the run like a bitch. Now, one thing Paul said too, when you watch the A&M Tech, when A&M got their, when they hired Elko last year and brought him in, they changed their scheme. And he wanted guys bigger. This guy, how about this? This guy, all his time is A&M, has played every position along the defensive line and played a minimum of 200 snaps at each position. So he's got a lot of versatility. He can play the edge. No, he's not going to play the edge at 294, but he could play the edge. He can play inside. You can even get him up to 305, because you look at him, he's lean, but he's got that versatility. He's got good length, like 33.5-inch arms. And for an inside guy, that's excellent. And he's just nasty. But the A&M scheme was more of a two-gap scheme. Very similar to what our current tackle played at Gervon Dexter at Florida. So, you're looking at him and he's not making a lot of plays. And part of that is because in a two-gap scheme, you're head up. Most of the time you're head up on the offensive lineman. You're taking them like this, and you're trying to control both gaps on each side, occupy blockers so the linebackers can make the play. Where in this scheme, maybe not as much as Fusa's scheme, it's more attack. Get upfield, get penetration, be disruptive. So, and really, when you look at this guy's game, now you're playing into his strengths. I think that the scheme they played at A&M last year really took away some of the things that he could do well. Did the same thing with Scorton. Scorton was like 10 or 11 sacks at Purdue, and he had 5.5 at A&M. And he went from a 255-pound player at Purdue to a 280-pound player at A&M because they wanted him to do stuff differently.
Right. Berlismo says 2 gap equals catch and control, disengage. 1 gap equals reset the line of scrimmage in the backfield and react.
That's a really good way to say it.
Yeah. And Courtney Cronin asked Ryan Poles about that challenge.
I know, is there some sort of blueprint you can follow just with, I know Dexter came from a 2-gap system in Florida, and then same with Shamar at Texas A&M. Is there a blueprint just in terms of the pass rush stuff that you want him to take on early on that you saw with Dexter that can apply to a young?
Yeah, that's a great question because we sat down and we were kind of split with that because it's very hard when you watch 2-gap guys. It's very difficult to see the projection. Usually a squared stance. Almost catching sometimes rather than getting off and penetrating. But there are certain down and distances where they'll do that, and sometimes you got to go back a few years to kind of see the clips. And a lot of it has to do with traits, like just overall explosiveness, length, power, motor, those types of things. You can piece it together. And there's a couple examples of guys over the last few years that came from similar systems that we actually went back and watched the tape, and it was eerily similar. That once they got in a different system, you could see them flourish and actually play to a whole different level. And that was specifically one of the things that we talked about with Shamar.
That, him talking there about looking at the tape and evaluating and diagnosing and so forth is part of the fun of being a scout.
You gotta sift through everything.
Yeah, it's like
I guess here's a good way to put it: sift through the bullshit. and you got to find out what they could do. And Ryan, go back to when Gervon was coming out. And I wasn't as high on Gervon, and I wasn't thinking about just playing a 2-gap versus playing a 1-gap where you're asked to do 2 entirely different things. It's like reteaching the game of football to the defensive lineman. And when I was with the Giants, our defensive linemen were 2-gap players. So they had to be big, strong, sturdy guys. And our linebacker, we had 3 Pro Bowlers at the linebacker position. 3 out of the 4 line. So it's in this scheme, and the same with last year. Yeah, you want the linebackers to make plays, but you want the defensive linemen to create havoc, disrupt things, keep them, instead of holding up the blockers from getting out to the linebackers, you want to get the blockers out of position because you're getting penetration, you're getting into the backfield. And when you get into the backfield and create that disruption, that takes away your cutback lanes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, now let's turn our attention to what can potentially happen today. A lot of people in the chat are upset that Watts, the safety from Notre Dame, was overlooked, but there are some plenty of good safeties
I'll tell you what,
on the board.
And sorry to interrupt, Watts didn't go to the bottom of the third round.
Yeah, right.
And the Bears didn't have a third round pick. So league wide, everybody, last pick the Bears had was 62. He went 40 picks after that. And so that means 32 teams said, nah, we'll wait.
Yeah.
So you gotta look at that too.
Absolutely. One of the safety names that I just saw at the corner of my eye, Berlissimo says Lathan Ransom from Ohio State would be a great day 3 pickup at safety. I agree with him. That guy can hit.
Yeah, I don't know him well. There's going to be a bunch of these guys that today, most of the fourth round, I'll know. When you get into fifth and sixth, some I may have done, some I haven't. And if I haven't, I'll do them. Real simple. So, they still didn't address the running back thing. I know some of the guys. Let me get my.
While you're looking that up, Jason has a question for you. He's asking, is safety just one of the least valuable positions to draft?
It's not a high priority position in the draft. You get good safeties on day 3, but I'm going to go the same. I'll say the same thing I've been saying for, the last couple weeks and the last couple of days, and really for 2 positions. The fan base said, we got to get a left tackle. We got to get a safety. The coaching staff said, no, we don't. So it's, and whose perception counts the most? The staff. So, and I've been saying that left tackle, I listened to Rochar, and Rochar likes the 2 guys he has. And people keep, no, he doesn't. They got to have a player. And he's going, no, these guys can be really good. Just listen to him talk. And I got to repeat it. A coach will never lie about his own players. He can't. He will lose the room if he does.
Correct. But when he's speaking with the public, he's going to present a very positive, hopeful point of view. I mean, you've said it many times. What do you think he's supposed to say, Aldo?
No, I get that, but I'm saying, but he's not going to. You look at how they talk, enthusiasm in their voice. And sometimes, when you get real excited, your voice comes up a little bit.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. You could read through him. He was enthused.
Indeed. Chubbs is saying, let's be honest. Again, thank you very much, Chubbs. Let's be honest. There's maybe 1 starting safety or 2. If they draft 1, it's going to be special teams. I agree that if they draft a safety in day 3, he's going to be a special teams player, but with the possibility of being a starter next year, particularly given that we don't have a safety under contract for 2026, at least not yet.
No, I know that, and I've said it a few times too. We're going to worry about next year. There's just, you can't take care of everything all at once. 3 months ago, did the bigger offensive line? Nope.
Can you repeat that?
I said
I
3
lost you.
months ago, did the Bears have an interior offensive line?
No, that's for
Okay.
sure.
Do they have one now?
They do indeed.
Okay. So, to me, a lot of times what the fan base thinks they need and what the team thinks they need are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
And, they can disagree all you want, but these guys are the guys who are in charge of putting together the team. Now, could they take a safety today? Yeah. There's been a bunch taken. Most of them went in this past round, in the third round. Now, is there some quality guys left? I mean, you mentioned the Ohio State kid. There might be. I didn't do a bunch of safeties, so I have done a bunch for next year already, and there's some pretty good ones. But we'll just have to see how it plays out. You got a 4th round pick, you got a 5th round pick, and you got a 7th round pick. And if you trade back a little bit with this 4th round pick, you could pick up a 6th. So, I mean, in another couple hours, we're going to know if it's 4, 5, and 7 or 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Looking at the running back position, it's almost a sure bet they're going to pick one with one of the 3 or potentially more picks that they'll have. Is there a running back? Now, let me ask you this first. When both of those Ohio State running backs were chosen, were you a little disappointed?
Yeah. No, I let out the 4-letter word with Henderson. Henderson is the guy I want. I like Junkins too.
Yeah.
But when I'm looking and, Junkins goes at 37, and then New England's up. I go, they're not going to take it. We're gonna have a shot at. If they want Henderson, they're going to get him. And then New England took him. I'm like, oh fuck, But that happens. I mean, I've sat in a room when a guy goes right in front of the pick you have, and you like the guy, and you just, that's why I said they used almost the entire 7 minutes.
Yeah. Among the best running backs still available, there's some impressive names: Cam Scadaboo, Dylan Sampson, Damian Martinez.
Okay, I'm sacrilegious with the fan base.
Go ahead, go get them.
No, I can. Maybe they will. I do not see Scadaboo being a Chicago Bear.
How come?
He can't run.
Well, I mean, he ran the same 40 Montgomery ran.
No, he did not. It's 4.65. That's a mistake. I even looked at Dane because Dane has everything, and I'm looking at it right now. And everything that came out right after he ran was 4.65.
Okay.
So, and this coach wants speed, and more speed.
Mm-hmm.
So, could they? Yeah. Can't totally rule it out. I just don't see it. Because he doesn't fit the type of player that Ben Johnson has had. At least not here. What the guys they paid attention to during the workout, the pro day process, whatever. Dylan Sampson, Tennessee, 4.42. Let me go down here. Brashul Tootin, Virginia Tech, 509-206, 4.32. Go down a little bit more. I like this guy a lot. Brashard Smith.
Yeah.
Something tells me this is going to be the guy. I may be totally wrong. Number one, he can play 3 positions. He is a very good kick returner. Might be one of the best in college football. He never played running back. He was at Miami and was a wide receiver and a kick returner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wasn't a great wide receiver. You know what it was? It was like Devin Hester. Miami didn't know what to do with him. And they didn't, Devin played 3 positions at Miami. So this guy transfers, gets some good NIL money, and goes over to SMU. They put him at running back, and he's a natural. It looks like he played the position all his life, not just got moved there. Mm-hmm. So he's 5'09", he's 195 pounds and 4.39. And I know they paid a lot of attention to him. So he's he's a guy that can line up in the backfield. You can put him in the slot, and he can return kicks.
Yeah.
So, it's, the old adage, the more you can do. And one other guy that they paid a lot of attention to, really first time that he got a lot of play time because they'd loaded it with running backs, Jaden Blue from Texas.
Yeah. He's second in terms of speed on Dane Brugger's list here at
4.38.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's why, you pay attention to what they've paid attention to. That doesn't tell me Scatterboo is in the equation. He's a fan's favorite. I get it. He is you know what he's like? He's like Shamar Turner. He's a junkyard dog.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay. And I get that. He's what we would refer to him as an overachiever. He doesn't have great physical traits. He plays hard. He's tough. He's mean. He's nasty. But I just don't see his skill set matching the skill set that Ben Johnson wants.
Yep. Chubbs, again, with another $5 donation. He wants his voice heard, and we're hearing it. I agree, Greg. I liked Henderson, too. Take the ban hammer off on me on the bird. We can agree to disagree. I'm not quite sure what that middle segment meant, but agreeing to disagree is what drafting and its scouting evaluation of players is all about. All right, in these last few minutes that we have, I want to ask you some questions. Cloudy Future, who was a great big help to us yesterday during our draft coverage, sharing information with us, now wants to ask you about Shedeur Sanders. What the heck is going on? Mel Kiper almost had a heart attack complaining about his number one.
I thought my man was going to have the big one. Go back to Stanford and Son.
Oh my God! What is going on? Some people are saying it's collusion. That this is
come on. That's ridiculous. I'll be honest. I don't have an answer. The first thing that comes to my mind, when generally speaking, when a guy falls, it's one of two reasons: medical, character. Okay, is there something we don't know about, but 32 teams know about? And I don't. It's all speculation, or is it? We don't want to deal with Dion. Could that be? I don't know. It's a mystery. The guy is a talented player.
There is no doubt at all that he should have been drafted in the first 3 rounds of this draft. He's definitely got the talent. He's got the resume, what he did at Jackson State and what he did at Colorado to lift both of those programs, as Emory Hunt told me in an interview a couple of days, is first round caliber. Just that alone. But I am with you. I think there are concerns about Dion's influence. There isn't a head coach who would be comfortable bringing in Shedeur Sanders as a day 1 or day 2 pick and having him sit on the bench, and then all of a sudden a losing record and people are asking for Dion to replace that head coach. I think that's one of the issues here, Greg.
Yeah, that's a good point. But he did just sign an extension. Pretty big one.
Yeah. He did.
It's I don't know. It's a mystery. He should have, maybe not in the first. He should have gone in the second based on talent. So again, I'll say there's something we don't know, and what that is, and it's not with one team or 2 teams. 32 teams are saying no. Well, Bears they're not taking a quarterback. So at least 31 teams are saying no.
Yeah. And Busa makes a good point. When your father, Deion Sanders, comes out and says that Shedeur won't play for a bunch of teams, that's going to leave a bad taste.
The thing is that, let's be fair. He didn't. I don't think he said that this year. He said you go back a year.
Yeah, that's true.
And he's saying like, well, Dion being Dion.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I've met Dion. When you get Dion away from the cameras, he's
a regular
really
guy.
a good guy.
Well, I bet he is. Yeah.
Oh, you know, part of this is there's Deion Sanders and there's Prime.
Mm-hmm.
And when the lights are on, it's Prime.
All right. What about the Mike Green situation? Laz wants to know Mike Green falling as far as he has.
He wasn't going to get drafted by a lot of teams. I knew it for a fact.
Off the
when
board.
I made Mike off the board. And you know how we said Carter went to the right team, went to Philly.
Mm-hmm.
Green went to the right team, going to Baltimore. Strong locker room. He's got a lot of issues. And I'll tell you what, the issues he got, if it happens again, now people say, well, he hasn't been charged. Well, here, the facts are this. Same situation happened twice, allegation, at two different places. It's not like it was at, it was once at Virginia and once at Marshall. So in the state of Virginia and in the state of West Virginia. So, you know, the old adage, where there's smoke, there's fire. Yeah, I've talked to some people. They both said the same thing. Can't trust them.
Mm-hmm. Can't trust him. Yeah.
And you know, you saw the kid crying his eyes out. He probably thought he was going in the first round and goes a lot later. But again, saying everybody passed. They kept passing. It was a first round talent, probably one of the better pass rushers. And that, you know, that's a premium position. They all said, I don't want to deal with them.
Indeed. I don't blame him. This is the perfect question to close the show with. Rob Drake says, it's a great draft so far, in my opinion. What do you think, Greg?
No, I like it. I mean, you know, I would have taken myself. I would have taken an edge over Trapillo. There were some good edges there. How about this? And to me, it was a little kick in the nuts. So they make the trade down with Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
And Buffalo ends up getting 72 as part of this trade. So who does Buffalo take at 72? Did you see who they took?
Oh, somebody
Landon Jackson.
Yes. The big
And
long defensive end.
when that happened, I went, oh, I got kick me on the balls, will you? I mean, you know, it is crazy. But because you know, there are some good guys. Now let's just see if there's anybody left on the edge. Well, there is one guy that I love. Swinson.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So
Swinson.
Jordan Birch went. A lot of people like Sawyer, and I like Sawyer. He's a short arm guy. So, you know, well, how is that going to line up with a group that wants length?
Right. What do you think about Sawyer? Yeah, that's what you're just saying. I'm sorry. He doesn't have the length. Correct. What do you think about?
Now, I can say they won't take him because now he's, you know, even though he's got shorter arms, he's value.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got to take that. There's a guy that's kind of interesting, but he just I don't know if he fits the mold. Is this David Walker from Central Arkansas? But he's only 6'1", 263, and he's a shorter arm guy too. So who knows? Kyle Kennard from South Carolina is a hell of a pass rusher, double-digit pass rusher.
Just
the next time he plays the run will be the first time.
That's right.
But he's a hell of a pass rusher.
6'4", 251. He needs to add some more muscle mass. But yeah, he's electrifying.
He gets upfield. He creates. You know, he puts. If he's not getting a sack, he's getting the pressure, and he's a bitch coming off the edge. But like I said, the next time he plays the run, going to be the very first time. It's like he says, "Oh, they're running down. Oh, okay, somebody else can make the tackle."
Yeah. Would you like to see the Bears add another pick via trade? Maybe trading that 109 and moving down.
Again, I was going to say this and I forgot to bring it up. It's how their board is. We do not know what their board looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
so remember what I said yesterday? When they get to 41, I said 41, they could probably trade down with. I said, but you trade it only if you're looking at a guy that you say, I can't trade down, I'm going to lose him and I want him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, then you don't do it. But when there's still a bunch of guys you like and you think you can get them later, you do it. That's what they did. It's the same thing here. You know, that if there's a guy that really jumps out at them, and they wanted, remember I said you got to get a fourth, They got the fourth.
Yeah.
So it helps them, and it's just, who are they going to take? I can see a trade down, but I can also say, no, we got to get this guy, and I'm not going to take a chance of losing him.
And it's not out of the question that they can find a starter or a valuable role player on day 3, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I'm
You
asking.
look around the league. There are a bunch of them.
Jason was just asking that question. We got to remember, you know, guys like Charles Leno Jr. gave us 5, 6, 7 years at left tackle. Yep. Richard Dent was an 8th round selection. We don't have 8th rounds.
The
anymore.
One guy that ate up Amagaji from Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It came from the Texans.
Yes,
It's
indeed.
a day 3 pass rusher.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's going to do it for our coverage here. Gabriel Talks Football. Thank you for everyone who donated. Chubb's very, very generous. Maddie has been very generous. On and on. I know I'm forgetting somebody, and I apologize. And thank you for all of the great comments. You're a big part of the show. Greg, we're back here on Monday. Hopefully with
Monday,
Dan Pompey.
Dan Pompey. I was going to say, we got a great, and I'll tell you what, and wasn't planned this way, but it worked out great.
Yeah.
I've known Dan a long, long time, since I came to Chicago. He's a great guy.
Mm-hmm.
Worked a lot of draft when I was doing the drafts on the Score. It was always with Dan. It was Hub and Dan and me. And
nice.
Dan has a ton of connections, and actually is a pretty good evaluator himself. When we were here, Pompey was in the building. Now, Pompey is real close with Jerry. They go back a long time. And so Pompey had better access than any other guy in the media. We let him watch film down in the meeting rooms, the players' meeting rooms and stuff, that nobody else could do that, but Pompey could. Yeah. And he evaluate players on his own and he's not bad at it, So, yeah. But here's the important thing: we lost Steve McMichael, may rest in peace. Dan was very, very close to Steve and his family, and if anybody can eulogize Steve McMichael on this show, it's going to be Dan Pompey.
Indeed. I'm looking forward to that, and looking forward to our coverage at 11 a.m. Central. We'll resume our draft coverage. Greg, you're the absolute best. We'll see you soon, brother.
Well, I'll try to jump on. Can't promise.
All right, I'll send you a link.
Send me a link, please, and then we'll go from there.
Very good. Take care, brother.
Okay, buddy. See you later.